On that quiet Saturday morning in 2004, Maria and her family were living an ordinary day, or so it seemed. What happened that day forever changed Maria's perception of what is possible between the world of the living and the dead. Imagine the surprise and the chill upon opening the door to people you thought had gone forever. If you have had inexplicable encounters or know stories that defy logic, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share your story in the comments. Stories like this remind us that contact with the beyond may be closer than we imagine. Maria, her husband, and their 10-year-old son were sleeping peacefully. Clayton, Maria's brother who lived with them, had not come home the night before. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. 2 young men were at the door with a white car behind them. They asked for Clayton, saying they had a soccer game that day and called him a slacker for not being home. Maria found it funny and promised to pass on the message. Hours later, when Clayton arrived, Maria told him about the visit from his friends. Confusion arose when Clayton denied any plans for that Saturday. Maria gave details about the young men and the white car, which deeply moved him. With tears, he told her that that day marked 1 month since the death of those young men. Clayton revealed that he did have a plan with the 2 of them, but an unforeseen event prevented him from attending. And what he didn't know until then was that his 2 friends died in a serious accident in that same white car at the exact day and time they had come to the house. The realization left the family in shock. How could those young men have really come to visit them, seeming alive, talkative, and even joking? For Maria, that was not an isolated phenomenon. She had already experienced other conversations and encounters with people from the other side, so vivid and real that the line between worlds seemed almost dissolved. These experiences made her a person who no longer fears the unknown, but who holds respect and mystery for what lies beyond life. Maria describes that talking with these unexpected visitors brings a mix of comfort and unease, a connection that defies time and death, yet also a reminder of the ephemeral value of life and invisible bonds. The family learned never to ignore the signs and to accept that sometimes the impossible presents itself behind doors we thought were closed forever. These visits, although painful, were for Maria a way to keep the memory of those who departed alive, and, at the same time, a call to value every moment with those we love. The soccer game that never happened turned into a ritual of encounter, albeit an ethereal one. The story of the young friends who returned, to warn, to joke, to comfort, also serves as a warning. The supernatural is not restricted to books or movies. It can knock on your door at the most unexpected moment. This contact makes one rethink what we consider real and permanent. For Maria, the beyond is not an end, but a subtle continuity that manifests in small details and felt presences. For those who believe, for those who doubt, for those who fear, Maria's story is an invitation to open your eyes and heart to the mystery that surrounds life and death. The memory of the white car, the smiling faces, and the voices of the friends echoes in the family's memory, an invisible bridge between pasts that still communicate with the present. If you have had similar experiences, if you have felt a call from the other side, share your story here. Subscribe to the channel to follow real accounts that defy logic and make us reflect on life, death, and what may exist between them, because sometimes the impossible is closer than we think. Every day, Jane followed her quiet routine down her neighborhood street in Ohio, crossing paths with a friendly old man who, religiously, opened the chains in front of the dealership while greeting her with a wave and a good morning. A routine so simple it seemed to hold no secrets. But not everything in a routine lasts forever. And when Jane went on vacation in February 2024, something changed. If you have ever felt that the world around you was whispering invisible secrets, pay attention, comment below, and subscribe to hear stories like this, where the end of the ordinary can reveal the fantastic. Jane returned to the same path after her vacation, waiting for the usual encounter. She felt the emptiness of the man's absence. As the days passed, her memory turned into a question. Where could he be? She imagined he was just away, maybe sick or traveling. In the heat of the summer of 2024, the unexpected happened. A stranger on the street, leaning against a house with a half-open door, stopped her and shared some unexpected and heavy news. The man from the dealership passed away. Jane, perplexed, absorbed the revelation. The stranger knew precise details: the man's dismissal, his alcoholism, a family fight, and finally, the fatal accident. After all, how would that man know the intimate details of Jane's routine? And, more disconcerting, why did he choose that moment to tell her what seemed to be a mere rumor? Walking on, dazed, Jane shared the strange conversation with her mother. It was then that a greater discomfort took hold of them. The stranger who had stopped her belonged to the abandoned house, which had been empty for years and was considered vacant by everyone. Her eyes sharpened on unusual details. The stranger had a gap in his front teeth, a detail that only Jane had noticed after intense focus. The bewilderment grew. That man, that story, that place must be connected by an invisible thread that defies logic. The doubts and fear accompanied Jane to the point of seeking answers in the spiritual realm. In a session led by a medium, confirmation came in a whisper. The man was not flesh and blood, but an entity sent to deliver a message from the other side. Jane learned that, just as her grandmother had the gift of communicating with the dead, she herself carried a spiritual heritage that connected her to the invisible, to a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead blur. This connection sparked as much fascination as apprehension. Jane and her mother turned the extraordinary into a space for playful banter and lightness, exchanging quips like, "I can't even ask if you're seeing things because it won't do much good." She now understands that encounters like that have no simple explanation, and that the visit of the gossip from beyond was a reminder. The past is never truly absent. Sometimes it just changes its face. The experience marked Jane deeply, awakening in her a sensitivity that goes beyond the ordinary. Although she walks among the world of the living, she knows that she has the ability to pick up on signs, stories, and presences that most people ignore. This special connection is a legacy that demands respect and attention, always accompanied by the care not to let herself be consumed by the weight of the invisible. Telling this story is also an invitation to observe your surroundings more carefully and to accept that sometimes we are chosen to hear what few people listen to. For Jane, the gossip from beyond was not a threat, but a message, a gentle warning that no one is truly alone. Amidst her doubts, Jane seeks to balance her ordinary life with this spiritual heritage, finding strength in faith and family. Her account reminds us that the supernatural can manifest in unusual ways, as a warning, a farewell, or a sign. She keeps the secret alive with care, knowing that living with the other side is as natural for some as it is invisible to most. This experience makes her a guardian of stories that cross worlds. If you have ever felt an invisible presence or received an unexpected message that could only have come from beyond, share your experience in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to continue following accounts that challenge our perception of life and death. Because the gossip from beyond may be closer than we imagine, and listening is the first step to understanding what cannot be seen. There are moments in life when a simple dream can be more than a fleeting image. It can be a warning, an urgent call to change the course of destiny. Jane, a young woman from Miami, Florida, discovered this in a visceral way during a summer that promised fun and ended up being marked by a premonition that saved her life. If you've ever felt that dreams bring important messages or know someone who has gone through something similar, subscribe, comment, and get ready for an account that unites friendship, destiny, and gratitude. Jane and her friends used to frequent music festivals, places where connections form in unexpected ways. In January 2011, she met Raphael and David, two young men who quickly entered her summer routine, Jane with Raphael, Julia with David. The encounters were intense, but life soon separated them until they met again in the Florida Keys during Carnival, in a beach house filled with laughter, beaches, and lively nights. The four of them spent their days alternating between fun and complicity. They explored the beaches, attended parties, and enjoyed every moment together, each returning to their home at nightfall. The week was unfolding perfectly until a playful conversation between David and Jane foreshadowed what was to come: a ride in the morning on their farewell day, a chance to be close a little longer. However, that night Jane had a disturbing dream: a car plummeting off a cliff, fatal consequences, her death as a spectator in that passenger seat. The nightmare was so vivid that it made her doubt her initial decision, choosing a different way home. With an uneasy heart, Jane revealed her dream to Raphael, who remained silent, perhaps out of fear or not knowing how to react. On the eve of the trip, with the weight of the bad feeling, Jane decided they would take a bus instead of getting a ride. Julia, initially frustrated, eventually gave in, agreeing that it was the safest thing to do, although it caused logistical discomfort. The next morning, with tense steps, Jane and Julia boarded the buses that would take them back to Miami. The silence between them and their crossed destinies was a strange mix of relief and apprehension. Upon arriving home, Jane shared her recent experiences and was distracted by her morning routine. It was then that the phone rang, Raphael on the other end, his voice filled with concern and a word of thanks. The fatality had struck hard that morning. David had fallen asleep at the wheel, losing control and crashing head-on into another vehicle. Raphael and the other passengers were injured, but survived. Unfortunately, people in the other car were not so lucky. Raphael revealed that Jane's mother had asked him to stay, knowing about the young woman's nightmare and intuition, and that a friend had taken his place in the fatal ride. The news deeply affected everyone involved, a combination of relief and sadness, of destiny and escapism. Jane understood that her dream was no mere coincidence, but a divine warning that granted her more than just a heads up, a new chance at life. Since then, the young woman has been grateful for that early morning, understanding the depth of dreams that transcend the conscious mind and cross invisible lines to protect us from the unthinkable. This experience gave Jane a new perception of the power of dream messages and intuition. She began to observe her dreams more carefully, looking in that silent world for clues to real life. Furthermore, the tragedy and salvation strengthened the bonds between the four young people who forever hold that unforgettable week in their hearts. Jane also learned that destiny can be a thin thread and that conscious choices, even difficult ones, can save lives. The courage to listen to her own inner voice was what kept her away from a foretold tragedy. As time passed, the episode became a striking memory, a reminder of gratitude and respect for the signs of the universe. Jane carries this story like a light against the unknown, a testament that miracles can happen. Even today, she emphasizes the importance of listening to internal warnings, valuing intuition, and respecting dreams as part of our spiritual guide. If Jane's story touched you, reflect on the messages that your own subconscious may be trying to bring you. Share your experiences with dreams and warnings in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to follow stories that show that sometimes life is saved by details we only notice when we pay attention. Because destiny can be changed, we just have to choose to listen to what we're being told, even in the silent corners of sleep.